Readers Entertainment Radio presents Book Lights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Book Lights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Well, hello. It's a whole new week. I can't believe it. I believe that summer is almost over. Yikes. Anyway, wherever you are, I hope you're being safe, and I'm so glad that you're here listening today because we have the fabulous thriller author Brad Parks on. He was on a few months ago with this quantum physics book that I was like, oh. Anyway, we got really sciencey last time, so who knows where we'll go this time. I'm glad you're here. If you have not read Brad Parks' books yet, I will read his bio here so you can get to know him. International best-selling author Brad Parks is the only writer to have won the Shamus, Nero, and Lefty Awards, three of America crime fiction's most prestigious prizes. His novels have been published in 15 languages and have won critical acclaim across the globe, including stars from every major pre-publication review outlet. I really can read today, guys, but it's Monday, so a little slack for me. A graduate of Dartmouth College, Parks is a former journalist from the Washington Post and the Star Ledger in Newark, New Jersey. He's now a full-time novelist living in Virginia with his wife and two school-age children, a former college a cappella singer and community theater enthusiast. Parks has been known to burst into song whenever no one was thoughtful enough to muzzle him. His favorite writing haunt, well, probably used to be Hardee's, wherever good-natured staff members would suffer his presence for many hours a day, and he can often be found working on his next novel. I did put a link to his website right there on Blog Talk, so you can click that anytime and sign up for his newsletter or check out his blog. There's lots of great content over there, and I don't want to delay anymore. Are you there, Brad?
I am here. Hello, Lisa. And I have to dispute one thing you've said right off the bat. You say summer is almost over. And no, not here in Virginia. It's not. It's about 91 degrees with a real feel of 190 where we are today. So summer's still going strong. Oh, yeah.
You're in the heat of summer.
It's like an armpit here, at least for another couple of weeks.
Okay, and then you'll start to see fall happening, right? You have seasons there.
Allegedly. At this point, it's only a rumor at this point, Lisa.
You'll believe it when you see it.
Exactly.
Well, you have a new book out called Unthinkable. You want to tell everybody about it?
Yeah, sure. So Unthinkable features an ordinary, regular stay-at-home dad by the name of Nate Lovejoy. And he is faced with an unthinkable choice, basically. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil. This is like the end of the first chapter, so it's a minor spoiler, but I think you're going to be okay with that. His choice is basically this: either he has to allow a chain of events that will lead to the death of 1 billion people, or he has to kill his own wife. I know. And now Lisa is like going, like edging away from the phone a little bit, going, oh, maybe I don't want to talk to this guy. But I should be clear, like right off the top, Lisa, I have a wonderful relationship with my own wife. And the reason I wrote this book is because, to me, like I really started with, okay, I have this stay-at-home dad character, and I used to be a stay-at-home dad myself. And so I really like this guy. And, of course, as authors, we think, what is the worst possible thing we can do to this character we really, really like, right? And in this case, the first thought that popped into my head was, oh, my God, what if I made him kill his wife? And then, of course, because I'm a crime fiction thriller author, my next thought was, wow, that sounds promising. And I took it from there. But really, this is not the kind of book, like I know I've had some friends who I tell them the premise of the book, and then they kind of look at me and they go, Brad, how's your marriage? And I swear to you, it's fine. We're very happy, especially, yes, after a year and a half into COVID, like I promise, this is not some kind of wish fulfillment. This is because this is truly the worst thing I could possibly think of. And it's also, I love doing this to characters where you give them two choices, both of which are completely awful. And that's what Nate is facing in this book.
Yes. As we were constantly going, how can I make this worse? It's not raining. Let's make it rain.
Yeah, I call it the anti-Hippocratic oath. So, if the Hippocratic oath, the doctor's taste is do no harm, the anti-Hippocratic that we as authors take is do lots of harm. So, like, for example,
how much more harm?
Nate, yes, that Nate is a stay-at-home dad in this book is in part because, like, okay, I'm going to make this guy save the world, and the only way I can possibly think to make this more difficult is if he has to do it with 2 toddlers in tow.
There you go. Well, how much of that based on your real life experience, because you have been living through the plague with kids that are doing school distance learning at home? How are you?
Yeah,
how are you functioning?
We've been doing all the above. Yeah, we. So to be candid, I do say in the acknowledgments of this book that we have successfully made it however far, and no one has thrown anybody out the window. So
Yay!
That to me is a triumph, right? Like a total triumph of
huge win.
We not only do we love each other, we must like each other for sure. But honestly, it doesn't compare to they're a little bit older now. They're in school and everything like that. It really doesn't compare to those toddler years, in terms of just the overall grind that believe me, I have not forgotten. I think some much older parents, generally of the grandparent age, would look at you in the grocery store when you have like that. So I made Nate's kids 3 years old and 18 months because I remember those being just the toughest ages, right? And our kids were actually 18 months apart. So we had we had a 3-year-old and an 18-month-year-old, and and I would be schlepping them both around and having them scream at me and all this kind of stuff, and some grandmotherly sort would say, "Oh, cherish these years; they go so fast." And you want to look at her like, "Lady, the last 15 minutes have felt like 3 years. There ain't nothing going fast here." So I wanted to kind of, I think I put in Nate like those kind of sensibilities of like, because I know you had children as well, or still have them, of course, but there's a line Nate has in this book, like something like, being a stay-at-home parent is thankless, monotonous, dreary, joyful work, right? And it's all of those things. I mean, it's incredibly joyful.
All of those things.
But it's also incredibly hard. And so I kind of wanted a character who reflected that reality.
I love that. And as the book unfolds and he realizes, that this is his mission, is he still being stay-at-home dad? So he has to go do all of these things with the diaper bag and the stroller and kids in tow.
The diaper bag, the pack and play. I mean, I remember all that kind of gear you had to schlep around.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, which was fun. Because this is my 11th thriller, so I've definitely had a wide range of protagonists over the years. And this is the first one I sent anywhere with A&D cream in his bag. I mean, for sure. But it does add layers of complication and difficulty, which is another thing as authors that we love to do, right? Like, how can we make things more complicated for our characters? And, to have Nate, in as much as he's a thriller protagonist, there are, of course, going to be things he needs to learn, things he needs to do, enigmas he needs to unravel. And, sometimes he has to do it with his children, with him. And, it's a... but that's also, there's a level of danger there too of anything. I mean, let's face it, and this goes to, being a parent now with my children, even if they're older. The things that happen in the world, when they're happening to just you can kind of go, oh, okay, whatever. I'm a grown up. I can handle this, or not, whatever. But when they're happening to your children, it's like, well, okay, now this stuff is serious now, right? Like now we're, and so I think Nate often has to deal with that. And that is definitely one of the sources of tension in the novel.
Yeah, and I know I read paranormal books, so I always have some kind of magical thing that, we think doesn't exist. And so I'm always trying to make the real parts as real as possible, so it's really easy to suspend your disbelief. And I feel like in a thriller, it would be extra level terrifying for me to be with a character who also is trying to protect their children. I would think that that would ratchet up the tension quite a bit, just because it feels more real than, say, a police procedural that I'm reading. I'm a police officer. I know they have lots of weapons and bulletproof vests, so it's not quite the same kind of, edge of your seat fingernail than somebody who's carrying a bag I used to have to schlep around, Do you think that
Right.
really added to the tension of the book?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then the other thing that children do, of course, is, okay, so here I have a man who thinks he might possibly have to kill his wife. And he starts to be, obviously, he's trying to keep that secret from her. You don't just come home and say, hey, honey,
right.
Guess what? There's some people who think I might have to kill you. And then he also becomes aware that it seems like his wife is keeping some secrets from him, which is a source of tension. But then what does the very loquacious, very precocious 3-year-old toddler do but narc on daddy to mommy, and then say things like,
right.
Mommy, I saw daddy with a gun. What was, why does daddy need a gun?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Oh, come on. I mean, again, take every character, right? Every character is the protagonist of their own book, if you will. And that 3-year-old, yeah, she's seeing stuff and she's reporting right back to her mom, as 3-year-olds tend
That's
to do.
right.
So I kind of wanted to make it as rich and complicated as family life so often is.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It sounds fantastic. And I also wanted to ask about this one. Is there going to be any more for Nate, or is this just a standalone?
I don't know. We'll see. That is always certainly an interesting question. So I can't answer that without giving away too much plot. But
okay.
suffice it to say, there is a part of this premise that is infinitely repeatable once you get to the end. And certainly, actually, it is being pitched right now. Like they are. I mean, and I don't know if you've had the experience of dealing with Hollywood, Lisa, but I am eyes wide open as to how far away this is from getting anywhere near any kind of screen. But it is being pitched right now to the streaming market as episodic television, and definitely
Love
with a
it.
season 2, 3, and 4. And so were that to happen, I can for sure guarantee you there will be a book 2 and a book 3 and a book 4. But we're kind of waiting to see at this point. But yes, there is an aspect of this that is that Nate and his wife Jenny could find more trouble and excitement down the road for sure.
Oh, love it. And then we'll get to watch the kids grow up.
Of course. Which and we know, if this does get to the screen, like, who will everyone's favorite characters be? Well, it won't be the grown-ups; it'll be the kids. And God knows if the Hollywood people decide they want to humanize it a little more and give the family a dog, which is not something that was one layer I couldn't go and do to this poor guy. I'm like, okay, he's got 2 toddlers. That's enough. There's only so much one man can take, but I'm sure Hollywood will give him a dog, at which point the dog will become everybody's favorite character. But that's okay, as long as they're watching and reading, right?
Exactly. So I wanted to touch a little bit on some of your other books. So you've written some standalones, and you also had a whole series, the Carter Ross series. Are there going to be more books than that?
I hope so. So there are 6 right now in the Carter Ross series, and for those who don't know, he is an investigative newspaper reporter who writes about crime in Newark, New Jersey, a place where, of course, there happens to be quite a bit of crime. So there's never any lack of things for Carter to be investigating, for sure. I have not been writing him the last few years, but I certainly haven't ruled out writing him. He is at this point, Lisa, I don't know, is he a big part of me? Am I a big part of him? I have a a little bit of a hard time knowing where one of us ends and the other begins. I myself used to be an investigative newspaper reporter in Newark, New Jersey. So there's obviously a lot of me and Carter. But and when I'm away from him, I miss him. You know, like you create this character, you spend 6 books with him, and then it's like, man, I'm not hanging out with him as much anymore. But it is certainly on my list. So you've had some serious characters as well, and I'm sure you feel that same kind of affinity for them. I mean, they become, doesn't it? And I know, by the way, it sounds totally goofy when we say stuff like this, but don't they become friends?
Yes, they do. And interesting, with the new thing with Patreon that's going on, a lot of authors are over there, and I have a Patreon community now too, in which one of their perks is a short story, and they get to vote. They get to nominate and vote who gets a short story. And I have to tell you, as an author, it has been so much fun because I have an excuse to go and hang out with these old characters who, I ended their series 5 years ago, but they picked that book. So I get to go back and read a few chapters and come up with an idea and get back in their skin. So, short stories are another way to go that you could, check back in and see how Carter's doing without that huge commitment of, a book. But I do understand what you're saying because it's so nice to go visit them. Oh, my gosh.
No, the world is already built. It's all familiar and comfortable. Yeah, and that Patreon, I mean, that's a lot of fun because you also feel like sometimes, and this is writer self-doubt and paranoia that obviously we are all as writers filled with these things, but sometimes when you're writing a book going, I mean, my Lord, layers upon layers, but you're when you're writing a book, you go, God, is anybody going to want to read this thing? Is anybody going to care about this story? Right. And when you actually have readers ahead of time saying, yes, we want something like this and we care, it has to be just tremendously inspiring. I mean, that's winding your sails as a writer.
For sure, definitely. And also to know that someone is eager to read it as you're writing it. It's always encouraging.
As opposed to, I'm going to force this book on my readership.
Yes, for sure. And hope someone will buy it.
Right.
But that's behind the writer, and we're really not so insecure. Wink, wink.
Oh no, not really at all. Self-doubt, please.
What's that? So I wanted to ask, since we were just talking about Carter, and you were a journalist, how do you feel like it's a whole different muscle, because journalism, you have to be married to facts. And in fiction, you have to remember that you're God and you get to make, if you decide in this world cars fall out of the sky, then cars fall out of the sky.
Right.
Hard for you to turn off the journalist when you're writing fiction?
It's definitely a different mindset. I always joke that in journalism, if you make stuff up, you get fired. And in fiction, if you don't make stuff up, you get sued. So it's definitely a different mindset there.
That's true.
Certainly, there are elements of storytelling that cross over. It doesn't matter what kind of genre, subgenre. If we can call journalism another genre of writing, those kind of elements in terms of building suspense and building characters and all that other kind of stuff, they all still apply. I think if anything, and especially in thrillers, I always say, people like their nonfiction to read like it's stranger than fiction, right? They want to go, wow, and that's actually
that is true.
But they like their fiction to read like it could be true, So
right.
I think oftentimes I am taking that journalist's eye, admittedly only into my own mind, but I'm kind of almost acting like I'm the journalist of the stuff that's happening in my brain. And then I'm just trying to accurately report what has really happened. So what's weird about me, well, I mean, there's a lot of, I should never preface a sentence. What's weird about me is because, then is this a 15-hour podcast? Yeah, exactly. But I almost as things that have happened. Like, and I'll get talking with my editor or whatever, and, and she'll ask a question. I'll be like, no, it didn't happen that way. See, here's how it actually happened, right? which of course is bizarre and strange because it's a made up story. But to me, it's real, and just in the same way the characters are real. Like I can close my eyes and see them.
Right.
Like, Nate is a guy, like, I know what he sounds like. I know what he thinks like. And, same with his wife, Jenny, who's she is a 6 foot tall, ass kicking lawyer. And, a little, and it's funny how characters come to you, right? Like in Nate, I already made Nate about 6'4" because I wanted to make him a former college swimmer for reasons that become obvious later in the plot, and that's fine. But I'm like, okay, so now he's going to, 6'4" guy, nice tall wife, sure. Okay, so hey, yeah, sure, make Jenny 6 feet tall. And back when I was a very, very young journalist, I was actually a sports writer. And my first gig when I was 14 years old and writing for the weekly hometown paper where I grew up was covering girls basketball, right? So I'm like, okay, so she's a 6 foot tall woman. She must have played basketball at some point. And immediately the sentence came to me, and I might misquote myself something, but it's like, okay, so who is Jenny? And actually, I have the book in front of me, so I'm able to turn to this little short paragraph. When you're a 6 foot tall woman and you reach your adult height in the 8th grade, you get used to the stairs. And you either shrink your shoulders, put on flats, and pretend you really couldn't beat the boys at basketball, or you eventually learn to do what Jenny did. Carry yourself with pride, wear heels, and kick everyone's ass. Right? And that's who Jenny is. And it all, I love it when a character kind of reveals themselves to you in that way early. And like, oh, yeah, she's like some of the young women who I covered playing girls basketball, right? They were absolutely terrific athletes and, very self-assured. And, yeah, they would, go into a gym playing pickup and completely hold their own, right? And it's like, okay, that's who Jenny is. And I love it when a character, so like I know who she is. So I could never then put her into a scene where suddenly she's being meek or apologetic or letting somebody have their way or, like whatever. Like, no, that's not who she is. And, these books for me are often an exploration then of, okay, now that I know who she is, what is she going to do in this situation? What is she going to do in that situation? And many of the best twists in the novel actually just come out of answering that question, like, okay, what would Jenny do next?
Dropping her in that spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we were just talking about your journalism and the book writing. Have you ever considered writing like a true crime or some kind of nonfiction that will be so crazy that we think it must be fiction? Have you stumbled across stories like that where you're like, I could write a book about this?
Yeah, and I have not stumbled across it yet, actually, and that is but I'm kind of on the lookout for it because I would love to do that someday. But I think it does have to be the right story because I'm mindful of the fact that when it doesn't play out the way I want it to, I can't just make it up, right? And and it's also and it kind of needs to have, I think, something of a satisfying ending, right? So like I think in any kind of genre fiction. Yeah, or something, or just at least there's a conclusion, right? And we don't, as genre fiction writers, we don't necessarily have to give our readers a happy ending per se, but we do have to give them an ending. And so, like, for example, I got approached by a reader, a couple months ago who said, hey, I've got this great true crime thing, and it's about this guy, and he was running this liquor store, and, and one day he was kind of like in with the mob, and he owed money to the mob, and then one day he just disappeared. And I'm like, that's great. What happens next? And the guy was like, well,
I don't know, he disappeared.
It's been 30 years, and he's never been found. It's like, okay, yeah. I could, and that's a great potential takeoff for a character in fiction, right? But it does nothing for me in nonfiction because I don't know anything about how this has ended, and it will be just really, really aggravating to a reader if I then present this and then can't do anything with it. So
and then call this tip line if you've seen it.
Exactly. So I've always been on the lookout for it, and it just the right story has not crossed my path yet. I recently got, I do hear from readers who, say, hey, have you ever thought about, and I had one recently too of, and I can't say too much about it, but it was what could I say? A woman who was one of the very first female spies in the CIA, right? And she led this very, very colorful life. I know, wonderful, right? And her family suspected that there was a lot more going on than perhaps she let on, because she would, make up these stories they later found out were made up of, like, no, she wasn't really in Paris at that time. She was really in Mogadishu or something like that. But then the problem was, this family member is now dead, and I tried to contact the CIA, and there were no documents saying what she was actually doing. So, like, that story has been lost, unfortunately. You do need, if we're going to say this is nonfiction, then I do need some source material.
To track it down.
Yeah.
Right.
I
think about. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, like, most of the time when I read nonfiction, that's what I'm looking at is, okay, what was their source material? And where did, a great example of that recently was a book called The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson. And it was a story of Churchill during the Blitz, the Battle of Britain in World War II. And I don't know how, I need to actually look this up, but, like, Eric Larson got his hands on some diaries of some people who worked for Churchill. Yeah, and some, like, never before published kind of stuff. And, I mean, did a brilliant job weaving together the story. But, as a storyteller, you need some sources and you need some stuff. And somehow he got his hands on those things, and bully for him. So I'm always kind of looking for that sort of thing as well, where, okay, not only is there a great story here, but it's a story I can actually tell.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. I always think of that Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. That was such a fantastic. Oh my gosh! And the whole time you're reading, you're going, "This can't be real," and then you're like, "Oh, it's real."
Yeah.
So,
you know what?
Really great.
I absolutely, and I very briefly met Rebecca Skloot, and she's a very wonderful, lovely woman, and she's very smart, and I hate her. You know why I hate her? Because do you know where she got the original inspiration for that book? It was something her middle school science teacher had told the class about.
Exactly.
20 or 30 years before, and you're like, why wasn't my middle school science teacher giving me great tips for potential best-selling novels? Like, I can remember, like dissolving things in test tubes or, like, dissecting frogs, but there was not any shred of a best-selling nonfiction novel in anything any of my middle school science teachers taught me, and I'm still pissed about that to this day.
Right, we went to the wrong schools.
Apparently.
Yeah, that whole book was really something. And then at the end, she had written that part about the teacher and the class, and how it all came to be. And it was fascinating. It was really neat. I hope that something like that falls in your lap, because I think you would be awesome at that kind of thing.
I'm still looking, and if you find something, Lisa, just let me know. I would love to be able to shoot you an email into something like that. Perfect. But or maybe route it through my middle school science teacher. His name is Mr. Belote. I'm pretty sure he's still alive and living in Ridgefield, Connecticut. So just send him a note and then have him forward it to me, and that would be perfect.
There you go. It all come full circle. So before we run out of time, what's next for you? What are you working on now? So
speaking of science, it's a little bit of I wouldn't say sciencey book, but anyhow, it is see, Lisa, my elevator pitch for this next book is not very polished yet. So basically, it is a heretofore unknown hominin species that has been hiding in plain sight on a remote Pacific island, and an anthropological team. So fun stuff. So an anthropological team has been sent to study this novel Homo species. So very human, like us, but not quite us, right? And an anthropological team has been sent to study them, has fallen completely out of contact. And now another team is being sent in to, quote, rescue them. So basically, I'm sending an anthropologist, 4 Special Forces soldiers onto an island with a completely novel hominin species. What could possibly go wrong, Lisa? I'm sure this is all going to turn out just perfectly. Exactly.
It's going to turn out great. Just their cell phone battery ran out, and they've been waiting for them to get there, right?
That's all it is. Absolutely, that's all it is. You've nailed it. Oh well, there goes that twist. Son of a gun. So,
well, it sounds fantastic, like an updated Island of Dr. Moreau or something.
Right. Yeah, there's kind of some Lost type elements to it. Anyway, the book is called Invisibles, and it will be out sometime. I actually don't have a date yet, but sometime in 2022.
Oh, so everyone look for that. And we're out of time, but I hope everyone will run and check out the book, Unthinkable. It sounds fantastic. And thanks for coming back on, Brad. It was great chatting with you.
Lisa, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.